Good afternoon, my students. We're going to continue to read from Indian in the Cupboard. We left off yesterday with Omri forcing Boone and Little Bear to a truce breakfast to sit down and eat together with the promise that they could fight afterwards if they wanted to. So they have both finished eating. They're standing up now, and Boone is calling out some fighting fair rules. So let's see what happens and if they actually do fight. Little Bear fight fair, kill fair. You ain't gonna scout nobody, Boone said, less'n you take it off with your teeth. For answer, Little Bear raised his knife to Boone, which flashed in the morning light. Omri, his hands on his knees, waited. Yeah, I see it, but you ain't gonna have it much longer. And why ain't ya? Boone said. Because I ain't got one. I ain't got my gun. Oh, I only got my gun, and my gun's plumb out of bullets. What I got here, and all I got, is my fists. Oh, and one other thing, I got my hallucination here. And Boone waved a hand at Omri, without taking his eyes off Little Bear for a second. And I know he don't want to see this purty little red face of mine hurt anymore. So if I'm fighting, it's gonna be fist to fist, face to face, man to man, Injun. Did you hear me? No weapons, just us two. And let's see if a white man can't lick a red man in a fair fight. Less'n maybe, just maybe, you ain't red at all, but yeller? And Boone stepped around the bowl of the spoon, threw his empty gun on the ground, and put up his fists like a boxer. Little Bear was nonplussed. He lowered his knife and stared at Boone. Whether Little Bear had completely understood the cowboy's strange speech was doubtful. But he couldn't mistake the gesture of throwing the gun away. As Boone began to dance around the Indian, fists up, making little mocking jabs towards his face, Little Bear was getting madder and madder. He made a sudden swipe at Boone with his knife. Boone quickly jumped back. Aw, you naughty Injun, I see. I'll have to set my hallucination on ya. But Omri didn't have to do anything. Little Bear had gotten the message. Throwing down the knife in a fury, he hurled himself towards Boone. What followed next was not a fist fight, or a wrestling match, or anything too organized. It was simply an all-in-all, no-holds-barred two-man war. The men rolled on the ground, pummeling, kicking, butting each other with their heads. At one point, Omri thought he saw Boone trying to bite Little Bear. Maybe he succeeded because Little Bear suddenly let him go, and Boone rolled away swiftly as a barrel down a slope and onto his legs. And then, with the spring of a panther, onto the Indian, Boone jumped again. But this time, he jumped feet first. Little Bear let out a noise. Oof! He caught Boone by both ankles and heaved him off. Little Bear picked up a clod of compost and flung it at him, catching the Indian full in the face. Little Bear got up and ran at him, holding both fists together and swinging them like he was swinging a battle axe. They caught the cowboy with a heavy whack on the ear, which sent him flying to one side. But as he flew, he caught Little Bear a blow in the chest with one boot, and that left both men on the ground. The next moment, each of the men found himself pinned down by a giant finger. All right, boys, Omri said. That's enough, Omri said in his firm end-of-a-fight voice like his dad's. This is a draw. Now, you both must get cleaned up and ready for school. And the next chapter is called School. Omri brought them a low type of egg cup full of hot water and a corner of soap cut off of a big soap cake to wash with. The men stood on each side of the bowl. Little Bear stripped off his handkerchief and his shirt. And then he lost no time plunging his arms in and beginning energetically rubbing the whole top part of his body with his wet hands, throwing water everywhere. Boone made a lot of noise about it too, and seemed to enjoy himself. However, he seemed to be ignoring the soap as well. That was actually all Little Bear. So let me back up. Little Bear stripped off his chief's cloak, which left him naked to the waist. Then he lost no time plunging his arms in and began energetically rubbing the whole top part of his body with his wet hands. Little Bear was throwing water everywhere. Little Bear made a whole lot of noise about it and seemed to be enjoying himself, although Little Bear seemed to be ignoring the soap. There I go, I fixed it. Boone, however, was a different matter. Omri had already noticed that Boone was none too fussy about being clean, and in fact, it hadn't looked as he'd washed or shaved for weeks. Now, as he approached the hot water gingerly, eyeing Omri, is to see if how little washing he could actually get away with. Omri looked at Boone. "Come on, Boone, off with that shirt. You can't wash your neck with a shirt on," Omri said briskly, sounding more and more like his mother. With extreme reluctance, shivering theoretically, Boone dragged off his plaid shirt, keeping his hat on. "I should think your hair could do with a wash too," Omri said to him. Boone stared at Omri. "Wash my hair?" he asked. "Washing hair's for women, ain't for men." But he did consent to rub his hands lightly over the piece of soap, although grimacing hideously as if it were some slimy dead thing, and wash at least the palm of his hands. Then he rinsed them hastily, smeared some water on his face, and reached for his shirt without even drying himself off. "Boone," Omri said sternly, "just look at Little Bear. You call him dirty, but at least he's washing himself thoroughly. Now you just do something about your neck and, well, under your arms, too." Boone's look was a start of horror. "Under my arms?" "And your chest," Omri said. "I should think I'm not taking you to school all sweaty." "Don't you go running down sweat. Sweat's what keeps a man clean," Boone tried to say. After a lot of bullying, Omri managed to get Boone to wash at least a few more bits of himself. "You'll have to wash your clothes sometimes too," said Omri. But that sentence was all too much for Boone. "Ain't nobody gonna touch my duds, and that's final. Ain't been washed since I bought 'em. Water takes all the stuff out that makes clothes good. Without all the dust and sweat, they don't keep you warm no more." Ew. At last, the men were ready, and Omri pocketed them and ran down to breakfast. He felt tense with excitement. He'd never carried the men around in the house before. It was risky, but not so risky as taking them to school. He felt that having family breakfast with them securely in his pocket was a little like training for school. Breakfast in his house was often a dicey meal anyway, with everyone more or less bad-tempered. Today, for instance, Adele had lost his football shorts and was blaming everybody in turn, and their mother had just discovered that Gillian, contrary to his assurances the night before, when he wanted to watch television, had not finished his homework. The boy's father was grumpy as well, because he had wanted to do some gardening, yet it was raining once again. "I know I put them in the laundry basket," Adele was saying fretfully. "If you did, sweetie, I washed them, in which case they're back in your top drawer," said his mother. "But you didn't, because I didn't, and they're not." She turned her attention to Gillian. "Now listen to me, Gillian." "Mom, it's only a bit of history, one mini little castle to draw, and a tiny paragraph to write." "I can do that at school," Gillian said. "Silly climate. Those onion sets will rot if I don't get them in soon, their father said. Gillian, did you borrow my shorts? I've got my own. Omri ate his cereal in silence, grinning to himself, hugging his secret. He slipped a couple of cornflakes into his pocket. I bet Omri took them, said Adele suddenly. Omri looked up. Took what? My shorts? What on earth would I want your shorts for? Omri said. It might be your idea of a joke to hide them, Adele retorted. This comment was actually not as outrageous as it sounds. It had, until very recently, been a common form of revenge. When Adele or Gillian had been especially unbearable, Omri would sneak in some valuable possession away from their room and hide it. Now, however, Omri felt very far away from such babiness and was quite insulted by the remark. Don't be stupid, Omri said. So you did, Adele said in triumph. I did not, Omri said. You're red in the face. That's proof you're guilty. I swear, Omri said. Their mother interrupted and said, Adele, they're probably under your bed. Go up and have a look. Mom, I have looked. I've looked everywhere. Oh my goodness, it's starting to rain now, their father said despairingly. So much for the apple blossoms. Under covers of the moans that went up about the prospect of no apples in the autumn, and the exclamations about the size of the hailstones, Omri slipped his coat on and ran through the bouncing ice lumps to school. On the way, he stopped under a protecting yew tree and took the little men out. He showed them each a large hailstone, which to them was the size of a football. Now, when we get to school, Omri said, you must lie very still and quiet in my pockets. I'm putting you in separate ones because I can't risk any fighting or quarreling. If you're seen, I don't know what would happen to you. Danger? Asked Little Bear, his eyes gleaming. Yes, Little Bear, not so much of death, but you might be taken away from me, and then you'd never get back to your own time. You mean we'd never wake up out of this here dream? Boone said. If that's how you want to look at it, then no, you wouldn't, Omri said. But Little Bear was staring at Omri very thoughtfully. Own time? He said musingly. Very strange magic. Omri had never arrived at school with more apprehension in his heart, not even on spelling test days. And yet he was excited too. Once he had taken a white mouse to school in his blazer pocket, he'd planned to do all sorts of fiendish things with it, like putting it on his teacher's leg. He had a math teacher then, a man. Or down the back of a girl's neck, or just putting it on the floor and letting it run around through the whole class and putting the class into chaos. However, he actually had not dared to do anything with it except let it peep out or make his neighbors giggle. But this time, he had no such plans. All he was hoping was that he could get through the day without anybody finding out. When he got to school, Patrick was waiting for him at the school gate. Have you got him? Have you got him? Patrick asked. Yes, Omri said. His eyes lit up. Give! I want him. All right, said Omri, but you have to promise that you won't show him to anybody. Omri reached in his right pocket, closed his fingers gently around Boone, and passed him into Patrick's hand. The moment Omri had let go of him, things started to happen. A particularly nasty little girl called April, who had been right across the playground at the moment of the transaction, was at Patrick's side about 2 seconds later. Hey, what do you got there? What do you got? What did he give you? She asked in her little voice that was like a crow. Nothing. Push off, Patrick said. At once, April pointed her finger at him. She said, Look, Patrick's blushing. Look, look, Patrick's blushing. Several other children speedily arrived at the scene, as a certain type of child would, whether somebody's getting teased or taunted. And soon, Patrick and Omri found themselves surrounded by classmates. And that's where we're going to stop. Real quick, here's a picture of the end of the chapter. I love you guys all, and I'll see you tomorrow for our next Read Aloud.